The night the river rose, the world didn't end with thunder. It ended with a child's scream swallowed by water. Rain had fallen for 3 straight days, turning the quiet town of Marrow Creek into a drowning memory. Streets disappeared, cars floated, and down by the riverbank, where the Jacobs family lived in a small wooden house, the flood came like a thief. Thomas Jacobs, a carpenter with calloused hands and a heart that belonged to his little girl, had tried to stay calm. He'd seen storms before, but never like this one. His daughter, Lila, was 8. Her laughter used to fill the house, until that night when it was replaced by thunder, wind, and panic. "Dad!" she screamed as the back door burst open, water pouring in like an animal set loose. Thomas lifted her, clutching her against his chest as he fought his way toward the attic stairs. But the house groaned, with splintering nails shrieking. The floor gave way. 1 second, he was holding her. The next, she was gone. All he saw before the darkness took him was a flash of silver around her wrist, the small heart-shaped bracelet he'd carved for her 5th birthday. Then the current ripped him away. When he woke hours later on a muddy riverbank, the storm had passed. The town was half underwater, and Lila was nowhere. For days, rescue boats combed the ruins. Divers searched every inlet, but there was no trace, no body, no clothing, nothing. Only silence and debris. The official report called her presumed drowned, but Thomas refused to accept that word. He stayed by the river for weeks, calling her name, whispering promises into the water. Sometimes he thought he heard her laughter echoing back, soft, distant, almost kind. Then, one evening, as the sun sank behind the broken bridge, he found something lodged between 2 branches near the riverbank. A single doll shoe, the same kind she'd worn the day she vanished. He sank to his knees, clutching it until his hands bled. And that night, he made a vow. If the river took you, Lila, then one day, I'll find what it kept. 30 years later, the river had changed. So had the town. Thomas, now gray and hollow-eyed, still visited the same spot every year on the anniversary of the flood. Most people pitied him. Some called him crazy. But this year, a phone call would change everything. A diver exploring a newly discovered underwater cave system beneath Marrow Creek claimed to have found something. Something small, metallic, and inscribed with a name. "We think it says Lila." Thomas froze, the phone trembling in his hands. The past wasn't done with him yet. The call came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Thomas Jacobs was sitting by his window, watching the same gray river he'd been visiting for 3 decades. The phone rang once, twice, then he picked up. "Mr. Jacobs? This is Captain Miller from the Marrow Creek dive team. I think we found something you should see." For a moment, Thomas couldn't breathe. His hand trembled so violently he almost dropped the receiver. "What did you say?" A team of divers was mapping the cave system near the old dam. The captain continued. One of them recovered a small silver bracelet engraved with a name, Lila. The design looked old, handmade. Thomas's world stopped. His own carving knife had etched that name 30 years ago. 2 hours later, Thomas stood on the muddy bank of Marrow Creek again. Older, slower, haunted. The divers were pulling equipment from the water, their suits slick with algae and river mud. A young diver approached him, holding something in a sealed plastic case. "Mr. Jacobs?" Thomas nodded silently. Inside the case, glinting faintly in the light, was the bracelet. Tarnished, bent, but unmistakable. He touched the glass and whispered, "That's hers." The diver exchanged a quick look with the captain. "Sir, there's more." He led Thomas toward a large waterproof bag by the rocks. Inside were small, waterlogged remains. Part a child's shoe, a rusted hair clip, and what looked like a piece of fabric embroidered with faded pink thread. The current carried them deep, the captain said quietly. The cave system wasn't discovered until last year. There's a hollow chamber down there. It's like time just stopped. Thomas swallowed hard. Was there anything else? Any remains? The captain hesitated. We can't be certain yet. We've contacted forensics. Thomas turned toward the river. It looked calm now, deceptively innocent, flowing under a pale sun. He whispered to it like an old enemy. You kept her, didn't you? All these years. A gust of wind swept over the water. The sound almost felt like laughter, soft, familiar, childlike. He closed his eyes, his throat tight. Mr. Jacobs, the diver asked. Are you all right? Thomas nodded. Yes. I just never thought I'd see this day. But as they packed up the gear, one of the divers, a woman named Riley, walked over uneasy. Sir, I know this might sound strange, she said, but when I reached the cave, my flashlight went out. The current shifted suddenly, like something was moving down there. And I swear, I heard humming. Thomas froze. Humming. Riley nodded, her face pale. A child's voice. Soft, echoing through the water. For the first time in 30 years, Thomas felt both fear and hope. Because if there was one thing he remembered about his little girl, it was how she used to hum whenever she was scared. That night, Thomas Jacobs didn't sleep. The bracelet sat on his kitchen table under a single lamp, the silver heart reflecting decades of loss. He couldn't stop touching it, running his thumb over the tiny engraving that once made his daughter giggle. Lila. He'd carved it on her 5th birthday, and she never took it off, until the river did. The diver's words echoed in his head. I heard humming. He told himself it was nonsense. Sound can travel strangely underwater. It could have been a current, a vibration, a trick of the mind. But another part of him, an older, quieter part, whispered something else. What if the river never really let her go? The next morning, Thomas drove to the dive site. Mist curled above the water like breath. The air smelled of algae and old rain. The team was already there, testing oxygen tanks and flashlights. Mr. Jacobs, Captain Miller greeted. You shouldn't be here today. We're going back in. It's not safe for civilians. I'm not leaving, Thomas said simply. His voice was soft but unshakable. I've waited 30 years to look that river in the eye. The captain studied him for a moment, then sighed. Fine, you stay near the surface. No deeper than 10 meters. Riley will guide you. Minutes later, the world turned blue. Thomas's body felt heavier than stone as he followed Riley's light down through the cold, rippling water. Branches reached out like hands. Bubbles shimmered in the beam of her flashlight. The deeper they went, the darker it grew, until the sunlight vanished completely. The cave mouth appeared like a wound in the earth, jagged and gaping. As they entered, the sound of the world changed. The silence was total, thick. But then, faintly, Thomas heard something. It wasn't the crackle of bubbles or the creak of his breathing regulator. It was music, a soft hum, a child's hum. Riley froze, eyes wide behind her mask. She heard it too. They followed the sound through a narrow tunnel until the passage opened into a hollow chamber. The flashlight cut through the gloom and landed on something that made Thomas's heart seize. A small wooden box, covered in silt, wedged between rocks. Riley approached carefully, brushing it clean. The carving on top was faint but visible, a small heart with initials inside. LJ. Thomas's air gauge beeped. He was running low. but he didn't move. He reached out a trembling hand toward the box. The moment his fingers brushed it, the humming stopped. The water grew colder. The pressure felt heavier. And somewhere in the shadows behind them, something moved. A dark shape shifted just beyond the light. Slow, watching, Riley's flashlight flickered and she grabbed Thomas's arm. "We need to go," she signaled frantically. But Thomas didn't move. His eyes were locked on the darkness ahead. He thought, just for a second, he saw her. A small silhouette, hair floating like ribbons, a faint glow around her wrist. The bracelet's twin. Then the current surged, pulling them backward. By the time they surfaced, both gasping for air, the cave had gone still again. Riley tore off her mask. What was that? Thomas didn't answer. His eyes were on the horizon, the bracelet still pressed to his chest. Because whatever was down there wasn't finished with him yet. The next morning, the box lay on Thomas Jacobs's kitchen table beside his daughter's tarnished bracelet. He'd retrieved it after the dive team returned at dawn. Its latch rusted shut, its wood blackened from decades underwater. Thomas sat motionless, a knife trembling in his grip. What could possibly have survived inside? With a grunt, he pried it open. A puff of cold, damp air escaped, carrying the smell of silt and decay. Inside, wrapped in rotted cloth, lay a handful of small objects, a faded photograph, a child's drawing of a house by a river, and a second bracelet, identical to the one already in his possession. He felt dizzy. There had only ever been one. At the bottom was a note, the paper half dissolved, but the writing still legible in places. His breath caught as he read the trembling words. If someone finds this, the water isn't what it seems. It moves, it breathes. It whispers our names. Beneath that, barely visible, was a child's shaky signature, Lila. Thomas's heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. "No," he whispered. "She couldn't have." He stumbled back from the table, clutching the twin bracelets. How could a note survive 30 years? How could she have written it at all? He called Captain Miller immediately. Within the hour, the divers were gathered around the table, staring at the contents in stunned silence. Riley finally spoke. The current in that cave, it felt wrong. Like it wasn't just water. Miller frowned. "We're not chasing ghosts, Riley. We'll send another team down and get solid readings. Maybe the current trapped things there created a vacuum." But Thomas wasn't listening. His eyes were fixed on the drawing. The crooked little house by the river. The same one he'd built for her when she was 4. He could almost hear her voice again. "Look, Daddy, it's us. You, me, and the river." Riley leaned closer. "Sir, do you see that?" She pointed to the corner of the drawing. Faintly, almost invisible, was a figure drawn in the water, tall, dark with something like eyes. "Maybe it's just smudged ink," Miller muttered, but his tone had lost conviction. That night, Thomas returned to the riverbank alone. The surface was calm, silver under the moonlight. He dropped both bracelets into the water and whispered, "If you're still here, Lila, show me." The current shifted. Ripples spread outward, forming a slow, spiraling circle that glowed faintly blue before fading back into blackness. For the first time in 30 years, Thomas didn't feel alone. Somewhere beneath that still surface, something stirred, and this time, it whispered his name. The sound came again that night, soft, distant, and impossibly familiar. Thomas Jacobs woke with a start, the whisper still echoing through the walls of his old wooden house. "Daddy!" He sat upright, heart pounding, eyes darting toward the window. Outside, the moonlight shimmered over the river, pale and silver. The same river that had swallowed his little girl 30 years ago. It was calling to him. The next morning, Thomas went back to the dive site before sunrise. Mist curled above the surface like ghostly breath. Riley was already there, sitting on a rock, arms folded tight. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "I kept hearing it too." "Hearing what?" She hesitated. A voice. Under the water. It sounded like a child humming. Thomas nodded slowly. Lila used to hum when she was scared. Riley's face drained of color. "Mr. Jacobs, you said there were 2 bracelets, right? The one we found, and the one you carved." "Yes." She swallowed hard. "There shouldn't be 2. I checked the footage from the dive. The bracelet we found, it was clasped around something." Thomas frowned. "Around what?" Riley's eyes glistened. "A small bone." By noon, the dive team was preparing to go back down, this time with cameras. Thomas stood on the edge, staring at the dark water that looked almost alive. The captain placed a hand on his shoulder. "Are you sure you want to do this, son?" "I need to know," Thomas whispered. "The river took everything from me. It doesn't get to keep the truth." He descended again, the world turning blue and cold. The current tugged at his suit like fingers. When the cave mouth came into view, his flashlight flickered, just like before. And then he saw her, a faint, glowing outline in the darkness. Small, drifting just ahead of him, the way a child might move through a dream. "Lila," he breathed. The shape tilted its head as if hearing him. The water around her shimmered. He reached out, and the current snapped like a whip, slamming him against the rocks. Pain shot through his ribs. His mask cracked, but he still saw it, etched into the cave wall in childish letters. "Daddy, don't follow the singing." Riley's voice crackled through the radio. "Thomas, your oxygen. Get out now." He turned his light toward the tunnel where the sound came from, soft humming, rising, twisting through the cave like the lullaby he'd once sung to her. "Daddy, don't follow the singing." But he couldn't stop. The melody drew him deeper until he reached a chamber filled with broken toys, ribbons, rusted metal, things the flood had taken. And there, floating in the center, was a single white ribbon tied into a bow. Her ribbon. He grabbed it just as the current roared to life. The water screamed, and for a moment, he swore he heard her voice, not calling for help this time, but saying goodbye. When they pulled him from the water, Thomas was unconscious, clutching that same white ribbon in his hand. Riley stared at him, trembling. The recording from his dive camera would later reveal something that made every diver refuse to return to Marrow Creek. Because in the last frame, just before the current exploded, a small hand reached from the darkness and gently pushed Thomas toward the surface. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain. Thomas Jacobs lay motionless beneath a pale sheet, the white ribbon still clenched in his hand. Machines beeped softly beside him. Riley sat at his bedside, reviewing the dive footage for the 100th time. Every time she reached the last frame, every time she saw that small, glowing hand pushing him upward, her heart clenched. She pressed pause and whispered, "What are you, Lila?" When Thomas woke hours later, the first thing he did was ask for the river. "Mr. Jacobs," Riley said gently, "you almost drowned. You need rest." But his eyes, once gray, now wild with something between fear and wonder, snapped open. "She saved me," he whispered. "My girl, she saved me." He opened his palm. The ribbon had dried stiff, but the faint smell of lavender lingered, Lila's favorite scent. Riley hesitated, then confessed. "We sent the footage to the state lab. They analyzed the light distortion around that hand. It wasn't reflection or sediment. It was energy, like static forming a human shape." Thomas smiled faintly. "That's my Lila, always glowing brighter than the storm." 2 days later, they drained part of the cave for further investigation. The divers found something no one expected: a pocket of dry space, a hollow chamber sealed by stone, protected from the flood for decades. Inside was a small skeleton curled near the wall, still wearing a ribbon on its wrist. Beside it lay a wooden toy boat, a faded drawing, and a carving knife, the one Thomas had lost 30 years ago. The walls were covered in scratches and carvings, childlike and clumsy. Hearts, rivers, names, stars, and one phrase repeated over and over: "It sings to keep me company." When they told Thomas what they found, he didn't cry. He simply closed his eyes and whispered she wasn't alone. That evening, as the sun set over Marrow Creek, he returned to the riverbank one last time. The water shimmered gold and quiet. He knelt down, placed both bracelets on the surface, and let them drift away. "Thank you," he murmured, "for waiting for me to find you." The ripples spread outward, soft and rhythmic. Then, faintly, he heard again, a hum sweet and calm. The same melody she used to sing before bed. It grew louder for a moment, circling the bank, before fading into the wind. And when it disappeared, so did the ache in his chest. That night, the divers shut down their equipment for good. They said the current in the cave had gone still, as if something beneath had finally found peace. But one camera they'd left running caught a final, inexplicable image: a small light moving gently through the water, shaped like a child's hand, waving. Some say rivers forget, but not this one. This river remembers every soul it takes. And sometimes, when love refuses to die, it gives one back. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel using the link below.